Good afternoon, everyone who's tuned in to this audio podcast, Soil, Seed, and Soul, or if you're watching this pre-recorded interview for our annual Sacred Waters Retreats for Women of Color. I am visionary and founder Angelique Sobande Greer, and tonight I am bringing you one of our repeat offenders. She is not just a budding herbalist extraordinaire, but she is a young sister who is taking the herb community by storm. We are so honored to have her in our midst every single year. Last year, she did our first plant walk with us, and she is going to grace us again this year at the annual Sacred Waters Retreat for Women of Color with another fabulous and in-depth plant walk for all levels. So you can be new to this, or you can be in intermediate level, or you can be very, very true to this herbal magic game. It doesn't matter. Lydia is going to make sure that you are on point and you are able to spot the basic plants that bring us so much health in our everyday lives, bring health to our lives, and really bring a level of awareness to our spiritual bodies. For those of you who don't know or have not heard about Sacred Waters Herbal Retreat for Women of Color, it happens every year in May, Memorial Day weekend. This year will be May 22nd through the 24th in the beautiful rolling hills of Tennessee, Dover, Tennessee to be exact, which is about an hour and 45 minutes from the Nashville, Tennessee airport. If you are interested in finding out more information about what we do at Sacred Waters Retreat, please go to our website, www.sacredwatersretreat.com. We are also found on most of the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us just by simply typing in Sacred Waters Retreats, LLC. Make sure you click on Tennessee when you get to the website. We do have two sides of our healing platform, and this happens to be our annual domestic retreat. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to some of you who don't know her, and to many of you who won't know her, and to a whole lot of you who will meet her soon, Miss Lydia. So Lydia, good afternoon. I am to you for letting me chime into your life on this lazy Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us again for our annual Sacred Waters Retreat. Can you take a moment to tell everybody your full name, where you are geographically in the United States, what you do for a living, what you do for love, and your background? How did you come to this part of your walk on your current path?
Sure. Okay. My name's Lydia Koltai. I live in or just outside of Oxford, Mississippi, and my business name is Elder Moon Apothecary. I have a greenhouse and I grow all kinds of different medicinal plants and what we call permaculture plants for building a forest garden type of situation. And then I also make medicinal products like teas, tinctures, salves, all that kind of stuff. And so that's what I do for a living. What I do for love, I homeschool 4 children, and then also the past couple of years I've gotten really busy doing a lot of volunteer work in my community. So I work with the committee doing lynching memorialization in our county. And I'm also doing climate change activism work in my community. So, and how I came to this path, I think I've always just really felt a deep connection to the earth, and just really felt like a child of the earth. And my grandparents grew a big garden, and I spent a lot of time out there. And then In college, I learned about permaculture and foraging, and I learned about all these indigenous cultures that have used plants as medicine. And I just became fascinated by that and really have just been exploring since then and love it. And I want to share it with as many people as I can. So that's where I'm at.
How many medicinal plants are you currently growing?
Oh, that I'm not sure even the number. I have a lot on my property. There's a lot that grows wild. Right now we've got chickweed and cleavers and dandelion and stinging nettles popping up and just all kinds of stuff. But in my greenhouses, I probably have at least 30 or 40 plants right now. And then I'm going to be starting seeds in the next couple of weeks for the next round of plants. So a lot.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That is really good to hear. Amongst your medicinal herbs, are you also growing other edibles?
Yeah, I like to grow a lot of edible flowers, and then we're into perennial vegetables, so I'm trying to do more and more perennial vegetables. And then I've also got broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and all that started in the greenhouse for my garden. And I can bring vegetable starts as well, but mostly I've been bringing perennial herbs, which I just love in the garden because they take so little work and they come back year after year and they're so beautiful, and then you have your medicine growing right there. So I love
Looking
them.
forward to some of the perennials that you'll be bringing, that I can add to my own little small garden, this year as well. Um, uh, your interest in permaculture, um, did you study that in college as well, or did you major in something different and you just kind of took an interest in permaculture?
Mhm. Well, I actually started with an English major. My plan was to become an English teacher. I grew up in the Delta, and the schools just aren't really great there, and they're very segregated there. And so I wanted to come home and be a public school teacher. And I I kind of realized that they were having me what they thought was great literature and what I thought was great literature wasn't the same thing. So the English major didn't quite work out. But there was a permaculture garden on campus. And so that's how I first got introduced to permaculture. And I was able to do a design course out there. And I also took a class called ethnoecology that was all about indigenous cultures and their stories and their understanding of the land and how it's so connected to what we know through science now. Indigenous cultures have had the same exact like imagery and stories teaching the same thing. So that's really where my love of like plants and understanding that we could use them as food and medicine and for our healing, and also just that deep connection with the earth that I feel is like a huge part of where the healing comes from. So that, and then I did end up leaving that first college and studying ecological agriculture, which really was about permaculture and sustainable cultures, sustainable communities. So that's where my interest lies now.
Are you, I'm sure that, well, I'm going to just assume this, but I'm about to ask the question as well. With for grade school children, is part of your homeschool curriculum getting in the dirt, getting their hands and feet in the dirt?
Yeah, definitely. We unschool, so really a lot of what they do is interest-based learning, but I'm always inviting them out, and all of my kids know like all the edible the weeds in the yard that they can eat, and they all get excited when chickweed is growing because that's everyone's favorite. It's so yummy. And yeah, they're always excited to come harvest if there's, chard, or my little one loves carrots, and when we've got tomatoes, they're constantly out there just grazing. So it's definitely important to me that they know those earth skills so we can keep sustaining ourselves as humans.
Yes, it's definitely important. And with this generation of children coming in, like you're part of, how old are you, Lydia? Are you a millennial? Are you considered a millennial?
I am. I'm on the older end of millennials. I'm 38,
You're
so.
38. Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're on the older end. So this generation, what they're crystal, I think they're calling them crystal children. So
Mm.
imagine all the things that they are, um, all the things that are already downloaded into them that they just automatically know.
Mhm.
It's way different. It's different, but it's not different than your generation or even,
Mhm.
my generation. And to think that little brown and black children um, can go out and not be one afraid of being outside, because that's been something that's been part of our legacy. um,
Mhm.
Being scared of being outside, outdoors with the elements, when we actually come from a history of being outside and outdoor
Mhm.
elements. So think of black and brown children who are not afraid to be barefoot in the dirt,
Mhm.
the earthworm, and possibly even pick it up and know that it's part of the earthworm is part of the ecosystem, and it works to filter this dirt and minerals, and they know all of those things. Think about how that helps solidify the other things that they learn, or even outside of a school, the confines of a school room. Um, so there's so much math in being in nature. There's definitely so much science to being in nature. There's so much that children can learn, and when I think when black and brown children have the opportunity to do that without fear, and they instinctually kick back into their innate survival skills.
Mhm.
Because think about it, if your children were ever really, really hungry, they know that they could go outside,
Yeah.
something that would sustain them. It would sustain them as long as they had fresh water somewhere. They knew that they know, your children know that there are plants and edibles that will do them just fine. Do you teach about mushrooms as well? Are you into mushrooms?
I am into mushrooms, but I think I'm kind of a beginner with mushrooms, and so there's only like 4 or 5 wild mushrooms that I've really worked with or eaten, because they're a little more intimidating as far as making sure
You're
you
right.
get the right one.
You're
But yeah,
right. You better know what you're eating.
yeah, definitely.
You better know what you're eating on those mushrooms. Um, while we're speaking on the topic of edibles, um, what was the other question? Well, I've got two questions. So during this time of year, what particular edible flowers are you growing some in your greenhouse, or these are just the wild ones? Which particular ones do you really do you really like, that you're really fond of this time of year?
This time of year, I'm really all about the wild spring edibles. So really the chickweed, my chickweed is going crazy in my garden right now. And a lot of years I'll just let it take over and not even worry about what we've got planted in there. So there's like some spinach and some carrots in our garden bed too, but I've kind of let the chickweed take over because it's so good, and those wild edibles are even more nutritious than anything we can grow. So I prioritize eating, chickweed, dandelion leaves, because they're I need that bitterness to help my digestion keep moving, especially this time of year. Cleavers, because it's such a good lymphatic mover. I love including that like into green drink or putting some in smoothies or even just throwing it in a stir fry. You can cook it up a little bit. And yellow dock leaves are another one that I use, and then wild onions and pretty much anything that you can throw in with eggs or like an omelet or scrambled eggs. I'm always going out in the morning and picking me a little basket and then making my breakfast. So it's a good
And
way to
see,
start the day.
I'm getting hungry already. So you said I was picturing all of it. Um, that's probably my favorite blend. Um, well, chickweed in anything is
Yeah.
for me is good. But
Hmm.
yeah, have you ever added chickweed to kale?
Yeah.
Yes, and with wild onions, let me tell you,
Yes. Yeah. That's so good.
it's good stuff. Yeah, when you can feel your cells open.
Yes.
Yeah, you can feel your cells open up when you have that
You do.
nourishment. And there's just such a deep connectedness to the earth and being able to be able to see it grow, to be able to identify it, to be able to harvest it, and then praise its name and bless it up, and then
Mhm.
put it in your pot. So those are definitely some good edibles. And then the second question that I was going that was going to lend into this is how how important or not do you think for it's going to be for uh, uh, mm, communities of Black and Brown people at this point, especially at this point, to know how to heal themselves with air, with the proper food, with plants, with herbs, with through meditation. Now, how do you think all of those are,
Mhm.
think all of those are important in healing our communities? And if so, how do you think how can we get into a phase of pushing more of that information out and teaching more of that so that this generation of millennials does not get lost, in cyberspace somewhere.
Mhm.
Everything comes from Kroger's or Publix or maybe Piggly Wiggly, depending on where you live.
I think it's absolutely critical, especially with what's going on with the planet right now and with climate change. But even in our communities, when we're looking at the health issues that people are facing and access to healthcare and access to fresh, good food. Um, I just read a study maybe a year ago that was they studied wild plants that were growing in the city, just like in the sidewalks and in medians and everything, to see if like pollutants were building up on it or if they were safe to eat. And they found that actually they were perfectly safe to eat just with like a water rinse. It wasn't building up toxins. So a lot of places that we consider food deserts, I feel like there actually is a lot of fresh, nutritious food available as long as people know where to find it. And then learning those skills of how to have a garden, even if you don't have a lot of growing space. There's so many ways that you can create container gardens or, guerrilla gardens is something we talk about, where you just make a garden, in your yard or wherever you have space, and you don't necessarily ask for permission. You might ask for forgiveness later, if there's a problem. But I think we just have to take into our own hands our health and our well-being and reclaim that knowledge, because that's our ancestors' knowledge of how to take care of ourselves and how to live in connection to the earth, because the earth is what's providing for our health and well-being. So it has to be a reciprocal relationship. And that's what I feel like we need to come back into.
Do you find it challenging as far economically? Because I over the last 50 years of my life, I've definitely heard, the greater debate is always that it costs so much to be healthy.
Mm.
Um, um, I I think that's a fallacy. It's just I just do not believe it. I have never believed it.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that there are some components of healthcare that are definitely out of reach of disadvantaged communities,
Mm-hmm.
segments of our population. We may not get the best in cancer care or diabetic care, but a lot of that begins on the front end, on the prevention end. So, do you believe that it's an economic challenge for communities of color to learn the skills to be a little bit healthier, or is it just a matter of priority?
I think there can be economic challenges, especially like if you're going to the grocery store and you're trying to, buy organic foods or buy, like humanely raised meats, and people really just have to be be okay with doing what you can. Like my family has not still isn't quite at the place where we can afford to buy like everything organic. So we try to prioritize like we're gonna buy humanely raised meat, and we just eat less meat because we can't afford to, have as much of it. And I think really though, learning the skills of how to grow your own food and how to find all the free food that's abundant and everywhere you look can help with reducing those costs. And then also just like opting for like less expensive foods that are healthy and nourishing, like more plant-based foods and more beans and legumes and grains, rather than going for meat and dairy and the things that are a little more expensive. And
Give
then,
the Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, hon.
oh, I was just gonna say there's so many medicines that we can make very inexpensively. If you're like growing your herbs for tea, all you need is the plant material and the water, and that
Right.
doesn't have to be expensive.
Can you give the audience an example of what you're talking about? Possibly, what your day-to-day, what a day-to-day meal would look like for your family? Well, your family of six, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So for breakfast, we actually have backyard chickens, so we have a lot of eggs right now. And I'm always trying to push them to eat eggs in the morning, especially because they're a great source of protein. And whatever the chickens are eating, all those nutrients are in the eggs. So we try to keep them on fresh ground and make sure that they have access to all those good weeds like we like to eat. And then incorporating vegetables into as many meals as possible is important to me. And for dinners, I tend to go for simple things that you can make in one pot and then add like, rice. And so I'll make chicken curry with as many vegetables as I can and some curry powder. If I have fresh turmeric and fresh ginger, garlic, onion, all that goes in it. And all of those are medicinal herbs as well as being, delicious spices. So
Are your
that's
kids finicky eaters? Do you find that they're still children, so kids, so they're, yeah, I might not want the broccoli, or yeah.
Mhm. They can be, and it really depends, like kid to kid. Each one has something that they won't eat. I'd noticed that the older two have kind of grown out of the picky eater thing. The 11 and 12-year-old, and the 5 and 7-year-old. Some nights they're like, "We're just gonna eat the rice," and I just let that be, and I try to just make sure that they're getting the nutrients throughout the day, even if they're not going to eat everything that I cook every day.
Nutritionally, how are you raised? Are you healthier than your parents? Are you healthier than what your parents raised you?
I think so. Yeah, my parents both grew up on farms, so I think that they ate a lot of vegetables, and they ate meat, that they had raised a lot. But they both left the farm life. They said that was too much work for them. And they're actually both doctors, so they worked long days, and cooking was not a priority in my family. So a lot of it was, bringing home takeout, bringing home fast food. And, that's actually something that made me a little more critical of medicine, that, they're trained doctors, they know what builds health, but in their own lives, we're eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, and it's hard, to maintain that balance, I think.
Yeah, it's very contradictory.
Yeah.
What their job is compared to their, like you said, their everyday life. Did you have your own health challenges growing up or into your adulthood that helped shape the way you see healing and food as medicine and the plants and the herbs and the seeds restoration?
Yeah, actually, I had really bad asthma as a kid. And I kind of grew out of it as I got older. And also eczema, which I still crops up for me sometimes. And so just like really having self-care routines where I'm making sure that I'm like moisturizing my skin and paying attention to what I eat. But I also just feel like my diet being better than what it was. I'm not dealing with a lot of the health problems that my parents or my sister, either of my sisters, are dealing with right now. So I feel lucky that I was able to like learn how to do things a little differently, and that I've had time to put it into practice. And I really just want to encourage other people to make your own health a priority, because it so much affects your quality of life.
It does. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. You should really you should really, listen to your body and watch how you practice food as medicine. Watch how you practice, what you're taking in, because it really becomes a part and parcel of, what your longevity, your health longevity is going to look like. That takes us into the next question. With health being the number one focus for Sacred Waters Herbal Retreat for women of color, and when I say health, I'm coming from a total holistic perspective. Sacred Waters is designed to embrace women of color in a safe space that is physically conducive for healing, and healing on every level. Components of health are reflected in the way we gather, the way we socialize, the way that we interact with one another, the way that we pray, the way that we show other women how to pour out things that are no longer useful to them in their everyday lives, and to take back or sometimes reawaken. Sometimes things are just dormant, inside of us, and we kind of felt it, but we didn't have anybody who turned the light all the way on for us. So we backed off of that intuition. Sacred Waters really it's really a really good space that encourages this holistic modality of health and tuning in to the way our ancestors used to do it. Not to say that what we're currently doing in our lives is wrong. That's not what we're focusing on. We're just focusing on the challenges that we have as Black and brown women, which sometimes form and come at us, on a day-to-day basis. So, do you think that in the few years that you've been attending Sacred Waters, do you think it is a viable platform that allows this type of healing for Black and brown women?
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. The women that come, I feel like I've made a lot of really beautiful connections and relationships. And where I live right now, I've not met a lot of Black women who are on the same path. So I really rely on going to Sacred Waters to fill up my cup every year, to be in community with women who are really, prioritizing taking care of their health. And I'll just say, like, the ritual aspect of it is, to me, what makes Sacred Waters different than any other herbal conference that I've participated in, and why it's so important to me, because the ritual space is, it's so beautiful. Each class is almost like a ritual. And I remember the first time I went, Mama Sula would sing us into class, each class, and we were smudged before we went into the building. And it was just this whole, like, like, we are here, we're present, we're entering sacred space. And then also, just seeing, like, the line of women all dressed in white, in our procession, I really felt like something so deep and healing came for me out of participating in that. And it really felt like coming home to myself. And so there's really no way to explain it other than, I think, to experience it for yourself. But I think anyone who has that longing to experience that sort of connection with other women of color, which we all need that, then you absolutely should come, because it's beautiful and it is life changing, I think.
Yeah, every year is so amazingly different. Was thinking about how powerful money pouring was last year. 2 hours long. I've never chanted for 2 hours in my life. So to have that much energy, from all those beautiful women, and it was one goddess voice. It was just one goddess voice. Even my husband said that he was so overwhelmed by the love that he felt, because he said, I thought you all were finished, and I'd come in and you all were still going. And when I come back 20 more minutes later, and you all were still going. So, I've never, in my 50 years on the planet, I've never been in a space that exuded that much energy for, one, intentionally, two, such a large, group of women. And it was just magical. Like you said, there are almost no words to explain, how that makes you feel, other than like you're coming home to yourself. And I always tell women that Sacred Waters, even though the retreat is for 100 women, it is an intimate space. And people always say, well, how can that be intimate? With, you know, you got 100 people there. That's a lot of souls. And yeah, it is, but it always feels very intimate to me. I don't know if you feel that every year, the intimacy of that, or does it just feel like a large convention or large gathering where you're just bypassing people and you really don't take the time to say hi or hug someone, or, you know, how does it feel to you?
I always feel like I feel so much love, like from myself, but also receiving so much love from the other women. And I may not have like a one-on-one conversation with each woman, but I really do feel like it's such a communal space, and we're sharing these deep experiences. And it just feels like being family together. And I had forgotten that how powerful that money pouring was, but yeah, it just kept going and just building on itself. It was incredible. And like, you looked around the room and nobody was like, oh, I'm tired, like, are we almost done? It was just, yeah, so very
No,
magical.
I told myself I wasn't going to participate because I was working in the office and spirit would not let me stay in that office. And then when I went out and I did my part and I returned, I said I was not going back out there. And it pulled me. It pulled me back. And I was so floored to see the women, you know, they were dancing, some were crying, some were laughing. I mean, it was just, money pouring last year just blew me away. It blew me away. And it's uh, it's an honor to be with, or it's an honor to share that type of experience with with other sisters in a space where we don't often, you know, get to do those type of things. Yeah. Um, One of the last questions I wanna ask you is, based off of what we were just speaking about, uh, do you think that Sacred Waters is, it is a collective space that every Black and brown woman is ready for? Or do you think that it's not a space that every Black and brown woman is ready for?
Hmm. I guess I would say you probably have to be open to, and willing to be vulnerable and willing to like have some new experiences. Like, there's probably friends of mine that I think maybe aren't as spiritually in tune, who might be a bit thrown off by some of the ritual. And but I do think that if they're willing to open themselves up and just like have an open mind and see if anything moves you, if anything, any feelings rise up in you, then it could be a beautiful experience for them too. It just really comes down to, whether or not you're open to experiencing some of that magic, because not everyone is. And I'm always want to honor people where they're at on their path, and maybe gently nudge them a little farther along if they're ready for that. But not everyone's going to be ready for that, and I think that's okay, because I think there are enough of us that really truly want that, and it does make the space really sacred when we're all coming into it with that intention,
Yeah, the other thing that really surprises me about Sacred Waters, and when I say surprise, I don't mean surprise as in I didn't think it would happen type of surprise. Surprise as in, oh my gosh, I am just joyfully surprised. That it brings Black and brown women from all walks of life, right? All walks of life. We have the youngest would be, over the years, has been 18. The oldest has been almost 80. So we have a broad spectrum of ages. We have last year, I was so thrilled because we had a enormous amount of Latino women. I was happy beyond, you know, I was happy beyond belief with the number of Latino women that joined us, because they are our sisters, and it's so, it's so many times society separates, Latino women from Black women, um, but we're the same people. So it was really good to see them there and see that they identified with, what was going on. They felt at home. All of those things are important. And then my next category that Sacred Waters likes to cover in our broad spectrum is sexuality. So I was asked last year, or I was told last year by one sister who was part of the LGBTQ community. She said, I really wanted to be here, but I was very nervous about would I be accepted. Mm-hmm. And I realized at the end on Sunday, nobody cared. Nobody cared about my sexuality. It was about my sisterhood. And that was very profound. That was a very profound transformation. I have many LGBTQ friends and community, and they spend their lives in a box, in a box, being normal and in a box. So, living in two worlds. So it's good to know that there is a safe space for them to come to just be unequivocally who they are, and then they feel good about that, because wouldn't Sacred Waters, we don't care about any of that. And then the last part of that is sisters who come from all walks of life, as far as their spiritual backgrounds, Christian women and Islamic women and women of traditional spiritual systems coming, just Buddhist women and Hindu women, and just a broad spectrum of women of color. And that's a beautiful thing, because what I'm seeing, Lydia, is that when we gather manifesting, when we gather for the same manifesting purposes, those things become so small and minuscule, but they also become the thread that weaves us all together and makes us all divinely beautiful in our own right, and collectively even more beautiful. And you just don't find that in many spaces that are educational spaces. You know what I mean? It's a conference retreat where you're learning things, but you're learning more than just, it's just not the educational component of it. So I am super proud of those little bitty things that happen during the course of Sacred Waters. What are you? I know you're going to do the plant walk with our sisters this year. Can you tell our audience the title of your class and kind of what they can kind of look forward to?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember what I named it.
Okay, that's fine.
Last year too. But I can tell you that we're going to be looking at, there's so many plants that grow like right at that beautiful conference center. And so we're going to start out just looking at the plants that are growing right in the lawn. And then we'll walk into the woods and look at some of the plants that are growing there. And this year I'm really hoping to have us also just each person choose a plant that they're drawn to. and we do some exercises where you learn to communicate with the plant through all your senses and really experience being in relationship. Because one thing that's really been coming through so strongly for me recently is how essential that part is to us creating our medicine and trusting our medicine, trusting that we do have that connection with the earth. And then I think the earth really needs us right now as healers to be earth healers, for us to receive medicine from the earth, but also for us to give our medicine back to the earth. And being in that reciprocity and that communication is the first step. So I want people to just get that experience and then they can build on it when they leave. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you again for taking a snippet out of your lazy Sunday evening schedule with four babies. Um, I know, you know, getting some free time is often not on your agenda. So I want to thank you for using your little bit of free time to oblige me with this interview. May is going to be here quite, it seems as if the retreat happens and then I'm all excited all over again because I'm waiting for next year. So it moves so quickly when we get to the next year. Jane, once we pass February, it's just like months just start rolling by. So I'm definitely looking forward to having you on the land at Brandon Springs, and to all of you who are listening to this podcast audio, Seed, Soil, and Soul, or you are tuned into this pre-recorded interview for our sacred speaker session. Today we have one of our beloved sister teachers, Lydia, and she definitely is going to lead you all into plant heaven. She's an awesome teacher, and she knows exactly what she's talking about. If you are interested in Sacred Waters Herbal Retreat for Women of Color, you can take a look at our website at www.sacredwatersretreat.com. Click on Tennessee. You will see all of the teachers' beautiful pictures, and if you click on the pictures, it will take you to their bios. We are still looking for exhibitors for our Sacred Emporium. We only have 15 spaces, so I believe we're down to 10 spaces. So if you know of a woman, a woman of color who is in business for herself and she's looking to expand her brand, Sacred Waters Retreat may be the option for her. Please let her know that the applications are on our website. She can download all the information there and contact my site manager who's in charge of all the exhibitors for the Emporium. We are also still seeking sponsors. It is my goal as a founder and visionary of Sacred Waters Retreat to be able to provide 20 full scholarships in the next few years for marginalized communities and sisters in those who live in those marginalized communities, so that they can attend this event free and clear. At this point, I can only provide 5 partial scholarships, and those scholarships are made possible by people who sponsor the event. So if you want to step in the gap and help our organization, we would greatly appreciate your assistance. There is a full sponsorship package located also that you can download on the website. It's in PDF form. We are not only looking for sponsors who can donate or on our sponsorship levels, but in-kind donations as well. We have 12 teachers. We're looking for gifts for their gift bags, and 100 participants. So if you own a printing company, if you own a bag company, if if you just like to get some sponsorship out, get your name out there, and help us with this event, we would greatly appreciate it. I think that's all that I have, Lydia. I want to kiss your face and send you a virtual hug to let you know that I appreciate you, I honor you, and I treasure everything that you have brought to Sacred Waters. Thank you for standing in your power and living in your truth and walking in your goddess energy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for creating this event. It's been so beautiful and so healing to be able to participate as a participant. And then honestly, like just going to it empowered me to ask you, could I lead this plant walk? So I really appreciate the opportunity to just step into doing a little bit more for the community.
Well, one of my philosophies is always my light is only shining because I'm putting some light somewhere else. So I put some light on you. So you're supposed to put some light on another sister so she can stand in her light and even know that, recognize that her light is on so she can shine and she can shine on someone else. We can't get anywhere really without each other. And so we have to demonstrate that. We have to demonstrate it on every level. And uh, the plants are our friends. The plants heal us, the plants guide us, the plants keep us, the plants restore us, and without them we really cannot survive without them. So I'm thankful for your dedication to the plants and all that you'll be bringing and teaching for these ladies in the next few months.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you again. Check us out: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm a dinosaur, so give me a minute to get all these social media platforms down. www.sacredwatersretreats.com. Click on Tennessee. If you need me, you can reach me at 615-499-6849. Thank you, everybody. Make this week a great week. Manifest everything you need from a place and a space of intention, compassion, and a lot of empathy. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.